Ever feel like you're so busy keeping up with, everything going on in our little corner of the world that you miss what's going on elsewhere?
Definitely, it's easy to get tunnel vision.
Well, today we're doing a little virtual travel. We're hopping over to Sweden to check out the latest news in building services.
Sounds fascinating. What's our source?
We're diving into Slussen.biz. It's like their go-to news site for all things building services. And you know me, I love a good deep dive.
Always up for expanding our horizons. Where do we even begin?
Well, this article about Swegon caught my eye. They've got this new initiative, RE.create, and it's all about reusing, not just recycling, technical installations in buildings.
Oh, wow. So like entire HVAC systems, that's next level.
Exactly. I mean, we hear so much about the circular economy these days.
It's definitely gaining traction, and for good reason. I mean, imagine the environmental impact. Instead of constantly producing new materials, we could give building components a second life.
Right. Not to mention the potential cost savings. Think about it. If developers could reuse, say, perfectly good HVAC systems from a previous project.
That could be huge. Though I do wonder about the logistics of it all. Like, how do building codes and regulations factor into reusing systems?
That's a good question. Can you just plug and play pre-owned systems, or does that create a whole other set of challenges?
Yeah, and how do you ensure those reused systems meet the latest efficiency standards? Lots to consider. But speaking of challenges, there were a couple of articles about health and safety that I thought we should dig into.
Oh, yeah. That one about dust exposure on construction sites was pretty alarming.
It's something we all know about, right? Construction sites are dusty places.
Yeah.
But to see a study linking that dust to long-term kidney problems, that's concerning.
Right. It definitely makes you think twice about those times you forgot your mask or, weren't as diligent about dust control as you should have been.
For sure. It highlights how crucial worker safety is and makes you wonder, are current dust control measures enough? Are they being enforced?
And what more can we be doing to protect workers? I mean, this is serious stuff. Okay, so shifting gears a bit, but sticking with the safety theme, did you see the article about Avidicare's new ventilation system, the Opragon 4?
I did. It's specifically designed for operating rooms, right?
Yeah. But the article mentioned that it's for operating rooms that don't require ultra-clean conditions, and that caught my attention. Why wouldn't an operating room need to be ultra-clean?
That's a fair point. It seems counterintuitive at first, right? But the thing is, not all operating rooms are created equal.
Oh, interesting. So are there different cleanliness levels for operating rooms?
Exactly. Some procedures, like open heart surgery or implantations, require an extremely high level of air purity to prevent infections.
Makes sense.
But other procedures, those that don't involve open wounds or implants, don't require that same level of sterility.
I see.
And that's where Opragon 4 comes in. It provides a high level of ventilation and filtration, but it's tailored to the specific needs of those less critical operating rooms.
So it's like the best of both worlds.
Precisely. They're not compromising safety, but they're also not over-engineering the system, which means less energy consumption and lower cost for hospitals.
That's huge, especially with healthcare costs always on the rise. It's like finding those efficiencies without sacrificing safety is essential.
Absolutely. Every bit counts.
Okay, so let's switch gears again, this time to the world of tech.
Always a favorite. What did you find?
Well, Systemair is up to some pretty cool stuff. They've developed these new fire dampers that don't require any sealing or caulking.
Wait, really? No more messing around with messy sealants. That's a
That
game changer.
Right. I can only imagine how much time that could save on a project. Have you ever had to install those things?
Oh, countless times. And let me tell you, anything that simplifies that process is a win in my book. Plus, it probably reduces the risk of installation errors, which is always a good thing when it comes to fire safety.
Absolutely. And speaking of simplifying things, this next article about Energy Team Scandinavia, or ETS, caught my eye. They're doing some really interesting things with building services training.
Oh yeah, I was just reading about them. They're all about bridging that gap between theoretical knowledge and real-world experience.
Which is so important in a field like ours that's constantly evolving, right?
Totally. And with building systems becoming more and more complex, having professionals who can design, install, and maintain them properly is crucial.
It's like back in the day you could get away with knowing the basics, but now with smart buildings, energy efficiency, and all these interconnected systems, it's a whole new ballgame.
Exactly. You need specialized training to stay ahead of the curve.
It's like learning a whole new language.
Except instead of Swedish, it's the language of sustainable and efficient buildings.
It makes you wonder how they structure those training programs. Like, do they partner with companies for hands-on experience or use simulations or something?
I was wondering the same thing. Actually, I know some programs are incorporating virtual reality and augmented reality to simulate those real-life scenarios.
Wow. Imagine like troubleshooting an HVAC system in a virtual high-rise,
Yeah.
before you ever even step foot on a real job site.
That's the future of training right there. Speaking of which, remember that job posting from Thermotech? They were looking for a technical inside salesperson.
Oh, yeah. I wonder if they're having trouble finding qualified people.
Well, that actually ties into what we were just talking about, the skills gap.
Right. Because as these building systems get more complex, you need more specialized knowledge to sell them too.
Exactly. Thermotech, looking for new hires, it kind of suggests that the demand for these skills is only growing.
Which makes sense, given all the innovation happening. Speaking of, there was an article about Ekovent, that company that specializes in those really advanced ventilation solutions. Anyway, they were just at a big fire safety expo. Kind of random, don't you think?
Not at all.
Ah,
It actually highlights something really important about our industry. You can't think of these things in isolation. Like, ventilation isn't just about indoor air quality or energy efficiency. It's also a crucial part of fire safety.
oh, right. Because if a fire starts, the ventilation system can actually help or hinder the spread of smoke and flames.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important for professionals from different fields to connect and share knowledge at events like these expos.
Makes sense. It's like we all need to be on the same page, especially with building codes and safety standards constantly evolving. Speaking of which, did you see the article about IV-Product's new modular air handling units?
I did. Modular construction is really having a moment in the industry.
Right. And now they're applying that same concept to HVAC. That's pretty cool.
It's a game changer for sure. Imagine, instead of trying to maneuver these massive, bulky units through narrow hallways and doorways, you can assemble them on site, piece by piece.
That would save so much time and hassle, not to mention potential damage to the building or the unit itself.
Exactly. Plus, it probably makes installation safer for the crews. It's a win-win all around.
It's amazing how these seemingly small innovations can have a ripple effect throughout the entire construction process.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes to show that progress in this industry isn't just about fancy technology.
It's about finding smarter, more efficient ways to get things done.
And ultimately, creating better buildings for people. Speaking of which, did you see the article about the new initiative to promote diversity and inclusion in the Swedish building industry?
I did. It's about time, don't you think?
Right. For too long, this industry has been pretty homogenous, and that's a problem. Diversity isn't just a feel-good thing. It's essential for innovation.
Absolutely. When you have people from different backgrounds and perspectives at the table, you're more likely to come up with creative and effective solutions. It's like, if everyone in the room looks like you and thinks like you, are you really challenging the status quo?
Exactly. You need those different perspectives to push boundaries and drive real change.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the Swedish building services scene, it's amazing to see how much innovation is happening over there.
It really is impressive. And it makes you realize that even though we might be focused on our local projects and challenges, there's a whole world of inspiration out there.
Right. And it's not just about, copying what others are doing. It's about taking those ideas and adapting them to our own contexts, to create even better buildings and solutions.
Absolutely. It's about that global exchange of knowledge and collaboration that pushes the entire industry forward.
Exactly. So to our listeners out there, don't be afraid to look beyond your borders for inspiration. You never know what innovative solutions you might discover.
And with that, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of Swedish building services. Until next time.